Okay, so this lecture is on analysis of variance and specifically the two-factor independent samples ANOVA. So for this specific lecture, we'll be conceptualizing and providing an example for the two-factor ANOVA, or two-way ANOVA. So let's recap. The one-way independent samples ANOVA compares the variance of mean scores on two or more independent samples, right? So it looks at the variance between and within groups. And it analyzes how one independent variable influences one dependent variable. Two-way independent samples ANOVA is slightly different, and it's an extension of the one-way ANOVA. So it compares means from two or more independent samples, right? So it's the same sort of thing. But it analyzes how two independent variables influence one dependent variable, right? So it's slightly different in that we're looking at how one independent variable, how one-way ANOVA influences one independent variable influences one dependent variable, whereas two-way ANOVA analyzes how two independent variables influence one dependent variable. So the analyses for two-way ANOVA looks at the effect of the first independent variable on the dependent variable, the effect of the second independent variable on the dependent variable, and then it also looks at the interaction between the two independent variables and the dependent variable. And what I mean by interaction is the way that the two independent variables work together to create a difference in the dependent variable. So in this case, we kind of have four samples, right? We have independent variable 1, and then we have independent variable 2, and how those two independent variables can interact to create differences in a dependent variable. So we're comparing means across all subsamples. So let's give a scenario, an example. Mars is interested in launching a new color for their M&M's line. To do so, they are going to experiment with two colors, pink and purple, to identify which color is most attractive to consumers. They're also interested in finding out whether there are differences among those consumers who like chocolate versus those who don't. So let's talk about the design for a second. So in order to design this experiment, Mars first asks consumers if they do or do not like chocolate. Then they randomly place those who like chocolate and those who don't in one of two rooms, either the pink room or the purple room. Each room has a bowl of pink or purple colored M&Ms. This makes it so that some people who like chocolate are in the purple room and some people who like chocolate are in the pink room. Same for those who don't like chocolate. To measure M&M color attractiveness, they simply count the number of M&Ms eaten for each participant. And we aggregate those numbers together. So we have here two independent variables, right? So we have our M&M's colors. So there are two groups for that, or treatment conditions. There's the pink group and the purple group, or those given pink M&Ms, those given purple M&Ms. We also have chocolate likers. So again, this is two groups. So people who like chocolate and people who don't like chocolate. And our dependent variable is M&M attractiveness. So that's being measured by the number of M&Ms eaten by participants, right? And so this is what's called a factorial design. So we now have the means for people who are in the pink M&M condition, the purple M&M condition, and people who like chocolate and don't like chocolate. Right? So we're looking at these means across all four of these subgroups. So quickly, just to recap on conceptualizing this, a two-way independent samples ANOVA compares the mean scores of two independent variables onto one dependent variable. This is an extension of one-way ANOVA.